Hey everybody, welcome to Advanced Social Problems, SOCY 3300. This is the first video cast lecture, and we'll have one of these pretty much each week through the throughout the course. And I just use these to go over some of the high points and give you some idea of what it is that I want you to pick up in the readings and what we'll be talking about in the discussion. First of all, this week we're going to be reading Chapter 1 from Coleman and Kerbo, and then Chapters 4 and 5. Chapter 1 is sort of an introduction to sociology and also to social problems and what it is that we mean when we say we're going to discuss social problems. A few of the things that I want you to pick up on, just very generally, the introduction to sociology, what it is, the scientific study of groups. Okay, the study of collective actions and meanings, the way that groups behave. We talk about individuals and the way that they behave in psychology. We talk about the way that groups behave as people are a collective in sociology. Think of it as the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. That's sociology for you. We're going to talk a little bit, or look a little bit in Chapter 1 at the foundation of sociology, Auguste Comte, Emile Durkheim, Karl Marx, and so on, why those things are important, those theorists are important, and what they had to talk about. And then we'll take a look at the two major theories of sociology. We've got structural functionalism, which comes from Emile Durkheim, and we've got conflict theory, which comes from Marx. Now, don't freak out about Marx and start thinking communism and socialism and all that kind of stuff. Anything that you've heard regarding communism and socialism and Karl Marx is almost all completely inaccurate. Karl Marx's theories, as you will see in Chapter 1, have been completely distorted by the Soviet Union when it was created back in 1917. What the founders of the Soviet Union understood, like Lenin and Stalin, about Karl Marx, they probably read less of Karl Marx's theories than you will read in this class, and totally warped it and distorted it. So don't be, don't get all jittery when we start saying Karl Marx. We're not going to sit here and talk about red state communism. We're going to be talking about theories having to do with conflict between basically two groups, the haves and the have-nots. The bourgeoisie being the haves and the proletariat being the have-nots. And basically the people who control things are the bourgeoisie, and the people who are controlled by the bourgeoisie, the proletariat, or the working class, however you want to look at that. So make sure you pick up on that in Chapter 1. Then we'll get into social problems a little bit, talk about what is a social problem. It's a condition which is recognized to systematically disadvantage or harm a specific segment or a specific number of the society's population. So there are lots of problems out there. What makes it a social problem is that it affects lots of people, not just a few. And it's a problem that is recognized as affecting a lot of people. So, for example, let's take spousal abuse as an example. Was not considered a social problem until the media brought it to our attention. So first, this problem of spousal abuse was considered a problem of a few deviants, or considered kind of a private or family matter. Now it's considered a social problem, and you should be aware, just FYI, that between 2 and 6 million women are abused by their partners or spouses every year. So even though this is a number that has a proportion that has not changed much, at least over the last several decades, it's only been within the last few decades that we've started to recognize this as a social problem. So that's just one example. Then we're going to move on to Chapters 4 and 5 in the Coleman and Kerbo text, and we're going to be talking about the economy. To start out, characteristics of the U.S. economy. Make sure you read my notes and read Chapters 4 and 5 when we talk about things like oligopolies. What is an oligopoly? The change to more service sector jobs as opposed to manufacturing and industrial jobs in the United States, and how that has affected our ability as a nation to produce, to have a growing economy, to have a system where people are able to afford to live and take care of themselves. We're going to talk about things like unemployment and underemployment. We'll talk about unions, the sort of the good, bad, and the ugly of unions. And we'll talk about the workplace. What is the idea of a safe workplace? And then we're going to move on a little bit and look at some international and comparative ideas on economics. Specifically, we're going to look at the Lorenz curve and the Gini coefficient. Make sure you look at my notes for that. Those are terms that tell us how much inequality there is in a society, and it gives us a way of comparing one country to another in terms of how unequal the distribution of wealth or the distribution of income is in a society, in a country. So we'll do some of that, talk about how the U.S. is faring within the global economy. We'll talk about the growth of government spending, and so then we're going to segue from economic stuff to government and public policy. It's important to understand how economy and polity, as we call it, economy and polity, or politics, public policy, you might say, how those two are interrelated, because those two institutions in society are very strong actors in both defining social problems and also helping us to overcome social problems. So everything that we look at through the rest of the course from here on, when we talk about the environment, or we talk about educational policy, or we talk about crime, we're all going to be looking at economics and at public policy, economy and polity, as we move through those and understand how those affect those social problems and how they can help to overcome those problems, to a greater or lesser degree. So when we look at the government stuff, we'll also take a look at how government is controlled, the electorate, as well as the process in Congress of creating laws, political action committees, and lobbyists, how they interplay or interact with lawmakers. We're going to take a look a little bit at the military while we're talking about government, because that's one strong branch of the government that has an effect beyond our own borders, obviously, and therefore how much we interact or how we interact with other countries around the world. So those are the high points for chapters 1, 4, and 5. Make sure that you read my notes, go through those chapters, quiz this week, and a discussion forum. Make sure that you participate in the discussion forum, and I will see you there.